Hi, this is the Drupal usability meeting for February 6th, 2018. And we discussed looking at the state of the out-of-the-box initiative, to discuss the edit blocks issue, as well as maybe looking at where the JavaScript initiative is eventually heading. And Jennifer wanted to hop on to review the new help system proposal with us. So it's a lot of things. So let's get started on one of them. Who wants to go first?
I think Benji's edit blocks is nicely hands-on and specific and concrete.
Okay, let's start with that.
Okay, I already posted the link in Slack. It's now in the Google Hangouts chat, and the issue number is 2809291. And the idea is that content editors or others with somewhat limited permissions sometimes should be able to edit blocks, and currently there's no way to do that without giving them the administer blocks permission, which gives them quite a lot of power over blocks. So the idea is for each block type to have a custom permission just to edit content blocks of that type. So by default, there's the custom block type, and you could give a permission to edit custom blocks. Or if you create a Lego block type, then you could have a permission edit Lego blocks. And some work has already been done on this patch, and the permission has been added. I'm not sure there's any user interface to get to the right page to edit a block. But once you're there, someone with this new permission can edit the block. One further problem is that when you save the block, you're then redirected to admin content block, the list of all custom blocks. And I'm sorry, not admin content block, that doesn't exist yet, to admin structure block, I think. And that's a page that unless you have additional permissions like administer blocks, you're not allowed to see. So first there's the overall question, is this a good idea? I think there's some agreement, at least from those who've commented on the issue, that it is a good idea. Then there's the question of what to do about that redirect when you save a block. And my suggestion, which I've put on the issue, is to create a listing of blocks that the current user has access to edit. And instead of putting it under admin structure, put it under admin content. So along with nodes and files and media, also have a tab for blocks. That's a rather drastic change that I suggested on my own meager authority. I was wondering what other people thought about it.
How do you, how do people arrive at the block they want to edit? From the front end, basically, right? Because there's no listing they have access to.
I still don't know the answer to that. I've asked it on the issue. I'm hoping that someone who's played with this more than I have will give an answer.
I can answer that. So basically, I think from the front end, so when you have like these edit links, I can share my screen. Just give me a sec.
I'm asking because if people can only arrive at it from the front end, we should probably redirect back to the front end.
Yeah, and it already does. So yeah. just a sample Drupal site, but so there is this block. So I can just, sorry, it's in Hungarian at the moment. So I can just click on set this block, and this is the block edit page, and I just click save, and it just redirects back to the page. So if you look at if you click on this and you look at the URL, it already contains the destination parameter. So yeah, if someone is doing it from the front end, it should be all okay.
So what permission do you need to see that edit link?
I think administer blocks without your patch, of course.
Yeah, currently you would need to have administer blocks, I guess.
Yeah.
And the patch would introduce this edit link for the blocks you created, right?
Yep. Probably. I'm not familiar with the patch, so. And it's probably the same with custom blocks, but I can just try. Like,
I think the issue even specifically is about custom blocks.
yeah.
This also gives
Yeah, that's fine. Just there should be a block. Oh my god, where it is? It's probably placed in the region. Okay. Let's place it into the main content. Yep. Okay, here we go. Just I can quick edit as well, which is nice. I can just go. I don't want to go to configure block. I want to go to edit. So editing the block. Okay, let's see. All right, so we have the destination parameter set correctly. So if I just hit save, it just goes back to the page I was. So yeah.
So then I think what's missing from the current patch is access to the links on the front end. And if we can make those links visible to anyone with this new permission, then, as you point out, the redirect problem solves itself.
And we wouldn't need to create a second listing of custom blocks, right?
Right, we would not need that.
And I think that would be a good place to start, to not have to need that.
Yeah.
I agree. That sounds like a great idea. I will update the issue.
Okay. Well, thanks. Cool. Yeah. Unless there's differing opinions on this, but I think this is a nice scope, right? See which blocks you can edit in the front end, have an edit link, edit, and return to the front end. That's the expected behavior. Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. Thanks, Benji.
You're welcome.
Cool. So Jennifer came in in the meantime. Do we want to continue with the help proposal?
Is my mic working?
Yes.
It is.
Oh, good.
Right.
I actually managed to whip my computer into shape. All right. should I share my screen here?
Ideally, yes.
Let's see. Okay, can somebody remind me how to do that? Oh, here we go, screen share. Application window, this one. Okay, I think you can probably see my, so I think, were all of you here on the previous demo? I guess Benji, maybe you weren't. And Angie, you weren't either, but maybe you watched it later. So this is a patch to add a new help system for Drupal core. I'll get the patch ID in a second. I guess I posted it in the UX group yesterday, so maybe somebody can get that for me. So the idea is that instead of just having the module overviews that you have, which is hook help, you can have configured topics. So a site builder or a module, a theme, or installation profile can make one or more topics, and then they'll just show up here if they're labeled as top-level topics. And so there's a new admin screen for help topics, which is here. It's at admin config development help anyway. And you can see all the topics listed. Just the ones that say top level are yes are going to be shown on the help screen. And then you can add a new help topic, or you can edit an existing help topic, but only if it's been unlocked. And the idea of that is that you can have a module. If you distribute a help topic with a module, you want to distribute it locked so that your average admin's not going to go and edit that help topic. But then if they have enough permission, they can unlock the help topic and then they can edit it. So the main change since the last time I did this demo is that if you are editing or adding a new help topic, the editing form looks more like the node form. So you can just edit in a regular HTML editor here. And so if I make a topic that says test, you can put in a bullet list or whatever. And then here, down here, there's this, oh, this is also different. I reorganized the screen a little bit. So there's a relationships and hierarchy field set where you can make it be a top level topic or not. And this is also where you can say, I want this topic to be listed on other topics as a related topic, and I want other topics to be listed here as related topics. And then the dependencies section, I can get into that, what that is if you want. There's also a new preview button. So if you have edited something and you click update preview, and this is kind of like views where you have to click update, it does a round trip and then you can preview what the topic's going to look like. I'm not sure if that's useful or not. And it's a little bit different from how Node does it, because I didn't feel like it was really necessary to go into a whole nother window, because there aren't really a lot of view modes for these things. There's just sort of one view mode. So I just did it this way. We could change that later if we need to. Anyway, then you can save your topic. And once you do, it's just like when you do node save, you get to look at the view page for it. And then from there, you can edit, delete, or translate the topic. So I don't know how much else to demo, but I think most of the UX things that came up in the last demo have been addressed at this point, and I'm just hoping to get it into core as an experimental module first. And the one UX thing that I haven't done is search. And what my plan is to hopefully get this into core first and then work on search. And I think my thought is, and I'd be interested in your guys' thoughts on this, but my thought is that if you search help, you should search both the module overviews and the configured topics, and maybe even the tours. I don't know about that though, probably not. But that way, if somebody searches for help on config, they might pull up the configuration manager help and also some thing here about changing basic site settings or something like that. Any thoughts? Do you want to see anything else? I can. There's a. Let me find the issue.
What was it with the dependencies that you?
Oh, the dependencies. Okay, hold on. Let me get back to my window. So the dependencies section, that's useful if you are a module maintainer and you're creating a topic for your module, or a theme developer and you're creating a topic for your theme. So for instance, if I'm creating module foo, I can put a module dependency. Well, that's not going to work here, but let's say I can make it depend on the system module. So this just pulls up a autocomplete for modules that are installed currently on your system, on your site. So that way, if you make a help topic for your module and you, it'll put the dependency in the configuration when you export it, so that if your module goes away, your help topic will go away as well. So it's just, it's mostly for, it's for topics, as it says here, for topics that you plan to export to distribute with your module or your theme. So that's what that's for. And then the related topics.
It looks like you were having fun adding stuff, especially with the additional preview. I mean, it makes sense, right? I'm not sure it needs UI
for the dependencies.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But yeah,
it was easy enough to put it in the UI, and it's a closed field set, so it doesn't take up much space on the screen if you don't need it. But
true.
The topics to list here, that's actually pretty useful for, so let's say I want to list accessibility features as, you know, in this topics, related topics, but I also can say I want to, when I'm displaying the UI accessibility topic, I want my new topic to be displayed there. So you don't have to have permission to edit this topic in order to display my topic on that one. Does that make sense? Here, I'll show you what it does. I'm saving this. So now in related topics, I have accessibility features. And if I open up that topic, my new topic called test is listed there on related topics, even though I haven't edited this topic. The main use case for that is that if I have let's say I have a contrib module that has to do with extending the node editing page. If there's a topic on node editing that's part of core, I might want to list my topic as a related topic on that topic, but I don't have permission to go and edit that topic in core. Does that make sense? So my contrib module can distribute topics that will add links to existing topics.
Right, you can insert yourself on pages that you do
yes.
not have.
That's what I was trying to say. I didn't really prepare for this demo since I had 5 minutes of this.
Totally fine.
So, yep.
Yeah. So, it's super great that you created the new content creation screen, right? I think what you're doing in the background is de-blobbing the blob, right? And
yeah.
writing
so if
away.
you look, yeah. So if you export these things, I can show you that too. Export, single item, help. Where's help topic? So here's a topic that's, I should get my test one that we were just looking at here. So there's a bunch of stuff at the top about like whether it's locked and whether it's top level. But when you go to the body, it's behind the scenes when you save these topics, it separates it out into sort of paragraph level things with, oh, I don't know what that is. Some random crap that the HTML editor put in. But anyway, you'll notice like this hello bullet has prefix tags and suffix tags. And basically behind the scenes, what I did is I defined a list of HTML tags that I decided were approximately the size of a paragraph, which such as like LI and P. And then the save function just goes through the HTML and separates everything out into chunks based on those tags. And I'm not sure what is pound 13. I'm not sure what that character is. There's something weird in the source of that, probably coming from the HTML editor. So anyway, oh, that must be, is that a carriage return? Anyway, and the reason that's necessary is because the text of each paragraph size chunk can be translated on using configuration translation or on localized.drupal.org. And there was an issue that came up sometime in the last few months, I guess, that if text blobs were too big, they crashed either crashed localized or crashed the config translate stuff. So you have to break things up into smaller chunks, and this was just a fairly easy way to do it.
Cool. I was thinking about the locked items.
Yep.
On the overview page. Does it make sense to? Or maybe that's because you're using. Maybe we're looking at it as user one, but even the locked items are links in the overview page. So they're still.
The link just takes you to the view page. So. Yeah.
Not edit. Yeah.
Right.
True.
So
yeah,
yes,
correct.
I can't edit them either if they're locked. I can unlock them, but I can't edit them. So I guess I can translate them if they're locked. But anyway, yeah. So you have to go over to the operations and unlock it in order to be able to do any editing or deleting. And then you get a confirm form.
Yeah. Mostly looks good to me. I'm unsure about the preview feature. I'm not sure if it's necessary, especially.
Someone suggested it from some usability person suggested it. I don't know if it was the right way to implement it, but anyway, it got suggested.
Especially because we're working inside a WYSIWYG editor already, so.
Yeah.
So. Does the preview include the links to related topics?
No.
It's only the body.
I don't think so. Hold on. Let me find my test topic here and we'll see. I don't remember if I did or not. Update preview. Yes, it does. There it is. So, yeah. So that is one thing that the preview would show you, all the topics that are related, whether they're from here or from other topics.
I would suggest.
Yeah, sorry, you go.
I would suggest to keep the preview feature out of the initial commit, just like you do with you're planning to do with search. It could be useful. I'm not convinced about this implementation, and I think I'd rather commit the smaller initial experimental module and build on that.
Yeah, it's about 20. It's about 20 lines of code, but I mean, really.
Yeah, but it's potentially 20 hours of back and forth about how a good preview in this case should work. And
okay.
Let's kick that can a bit further down the road.
Okay.
Because I'd be happy with there's a useful help improvement here without this preview, to me.
Yeah, I don't remember whose suggestion the preview was, but that's why it got put in. So. Yeah, I personally don't think it's all that useful either, but somebody wanted it. I don't remember who. But
yeah,
I can definitely take it back out.
If it was me, sorry, I changed my mind.
Yeah. Well, that was before we had a WYSIWYG also, so.
Look.
I mean, it may have been suggested before we had a WYSIWYG.
Right, because we had a lot of paragraphs like UI Chrome around things, right? Okay. Yeah, so we're much closer. The gap between what, the edit and the actual view is reduced drastically. So the need for a separate preview.
Oh, I also want to show you the translate screen because that was a little bit tricky. And maybe we can do something about this later, but because the configuration is stored chunked up, I had some question about how to go about translating it. And I ended up writing a little custom form element for translating the body of this thing. So it actually merges everything in. And as you can see, there's a bunch of these carriage returns or something. and then so you're editing the raw HTML, and it's not a WYSIWYG editor.
It's a carriage return indeed.
Yeah. So I'm not totally excited about the fact that it's not an HTML editor, but then I wasn't sure what to do about it, I guess.
What if I delete the paragraph here? Or, for example, the list HTML?
What's that?
What if I delete the list HTML here, for example? What happens with the translation? It still works because I think it's super easy. You can delete super easily the HTML, and then it's not right.
Well, let's try it here.
Oh no.
Okay. Well, it looks like it got saved. So if I go to ES, oh, well, okay. I'm not sure what the URL of the thing is. Let's see. Translate help topic, edit. Huh. Okay, I'm not sure how I have the Spanish configured, and so I'm not sure where the Spanish one can be viewed. So it didn't complain when I saved it. What's that?
Can you go to the help overview and get that page in Spanish? And if we're really lucky, there will be a link there. Maybe.
Oops, that's not the help overview. Oh, I don't have the help overview on here. Let's see, admin config development help. Okay, so you're saying put the ES here. That might be in Spanish. Oops.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Okay, all my menus came up in Spanish. So now, it didn't seem to, I don't know. Something's not working with the Spanish viewing right now.
Because
if I edit it.
If you are actually separating the text from the prefix and suffix, maybe it could be also separated on the translation here.
Yeah, it didn't. It seems to have not saved what I saved, so
okay.
I'm not sure what's going on. That's a good question. I will file an issue about it, and we can deal with it at some point.
Investigate. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no point trying to debug it on the phone on the Hangout. So, good question though.
So for editing the translation, I would imagine just editing the text itself instead of the prefix and suffix. I don't know if it makes sense, but that's what I would expect. I don't know if it's more difficult or...
So the default interface before I made this thing here that edits the whole thing together, the default interface was showing just the individual chunks, but I didn't find it to be intuitive in the least, and that's why I put in this thing. So I guess the question is, you know, if all you're seeing is this is a test, I could put in a bullet list and hello, you don't really have a sense of how it fits together. So, yeah.
Right.
So when it just showed the individual actually translatable strings, it just didn't seem to work. So.
Yeah, right. It makes a lot of sense saying that way.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So a couple of feedback items on the UX, right?
Yep.
Let's rip out the preview. Postpone search indeed, and yeah, the dependencies thing okay, I guess, and look into translation.
So one of the reasons I think it's important to have the dependencies thing in the UI is that it really allows non-technical people to write the documentation for a module. So for instance, some non-programmer person could take an issue for the foobar module and write help topics for it because they're a power user of the foobar module, but they're not a programmer. And if you allow them to put the dependencies in that UI, then the patch or the file, they export their YAML, and that's the YAML that's needed, and the developer doesn't have to go in and put that stuff in later. So anyway, it doesn't take up much space on the screen, especially when it's collapsed. That's all else I'll say. So.
Yeah, maybe it's not even the space, right? I mean, just looking at it for a too short amount of time, it didn't immediately make sense, but I didn't even get to reading the actual descriptions you used. So
yeah, yeah, it's collapsed down here. Right, there's still this bug that hasn't been fixed for ages. That in Firefox you don't get the drop
triangle
downs.
is
The triangles are missing on Firefox. I filed this issue like a year and a half ago, and there's been a patch, and no one wants to commit it. So I'm just whatever.
Yeah,
it's still there. The problem is it's in the normalize.css, and anyway, it hasn't been updated because it might be backwards incompatible, but it's still broken.
Yeah.
So anyway, there should be an arrow there, but that's not my fault.
No. Yeah, I know.
So anyway. Okay.
Thanks for the demo. I think you've got your action items, so to say, but let's see if we can and then the next step for you is to get an actual architectural code review, right? Or at least review / sign off on the technical approach, or is this?
Yeah, I mean the patch has been up there. Yeah, I don't know. As far as the technical approach goes, I mean, part of that was about there was a whole plugin system for the little chunks when it was still chunked. I don't know, that's gone. So now this is just an entity and some forms. So I don't really know how much of the architecture needs to be signed off on anymore.
Okay, so we're closer to default handling of things.
Yeah. The only thing that's weird on it is that when you save, it does break it up into chunks, and when you edit, it takes the chunks and puts them back together.
Yep. Cool.
And the other thing that's weird is that this HTML editor has put in a lot of carriage returns, and I don't know why it did that. But I don't do HTML editors, so it's... I mean, that's CK editor or whatever.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Let's make sure it doesn't that it does get committed somewhere sooner, soon in the 8.6 cycle.
Yeah, I mean, it's only 6 versions later, but
yes.
So, do you want to go and put a comment on the issue that you've signed off on it as long as the preview gets gotten rid of?
I'll list the feedback items we have, and then
okay.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable making a new patch after the UX people say we're signed off on it aside from this than just making the new patch. Okay, thanks a lot.
Will do. Thank you.
I will unscreen share.
Great, thanks.
Let's see.
Okay, I think Angie wanted to update us on where out of the box is.
Sure. So I don't do video for this, I guess. So I don't know entirely where that is at, but basically the point where we're at now is the out-of-the-box team worked very, very hard all through the weekend and for the last couple of weeks on their beta blockers, and we're down to 0 identified beta blockers in out-of-the-box, which is great. The core committers, we were talking this morning, still expressed some hesitation around putting an in 8.5 proper, because it's like introducing this new concept of an experimental profile, and we have some kind of unanswered questions about that. So like they'd feel more comfortable with like kind of a burn-in period of people testing it and stuff like that. And so what was kind of thought of as a middle ground, and I don't know exactly that this will happen or not, but it seems to be heading like in that direction, is look, this has already been committed to 8.6, so one way or the other it will ship in September. So we know that already. The question is, can we ship it anytime sooner than that? So one middle ground proposal that's been discussed is the idea of committing it to 8.5 as a hidden profile, which would allow it to be in the code base for 8.5. It would allow us to test it with things like Simply Test Me, Drush, you know, that kind of stuff. So obviously not allow evaluators to test it, but it would allow like core developers to test it and look for issues and that kind of thing. And then it could allow us to build in a burn-in period so that in a later patch release, maybe we could mark it as not hidden. So like for 8.5.1 is going to be right around Nashville, that kind of thing. I don't know for sure. So I just want to give an update on that because I know that initiative is near and dear to everyone on this call's heart. And the team has been working really hard and they're doing fantastic work on it. So yeah, that's kind of currently where things are at. Thoughts on that proposal or that middle ground idea?
I think where it's coming from is that sorry, Christina, if you want.
Oh no, go ahead, don't worry.
I think it's coming from the idea that it's been committed so recently that it didn't get actual alpha testing time, right? It hasn't proven itself. It has not had a chance to prove itself as a beta quality because we have not we did not have a good time shaking out whatever bugs we might find. So the thing the team has come up with is a new trick. So well, not really new. Media was hidden, I guess. So the trick of hiding, shipping, but hiding from the UI, so that potentially we don't need to wait for 8.6, but we can switch it on, unhide it, and make it shown in the UI for a 8.5.1 or 8.5.2 release. Whenever we feel we are ready and we have tested the thing, shaken out any unknown unknowns. Because there's unknown unknowns right now, and we need to know at least get to known unknowns and hopefully resolve any unknowns that are actual bugs or issues.
Yeah, the problem mainly is that there haven't been enough people probably doing crazy stuff and crazy things and having crazy ideas, and I'm going to disable, I don't know, views or something like that, and what happens then, and these kind of things. It's something that really needs people testing there, and it makes a lot of sense doing so.
Right, and there's probably very many interesting ways to break umami. Everybody's aware that umami is supposed to break under some conditions. We just don't have any experience yet with can it break fatally or can it break in a way that works counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve, right? So yeah, it's basically it needs that test drive period where we stress test it or whatever and see whatever we need to put in place to, well, get a level of comfort with what we expect from an experimental demo install profile.
Yeah, I guess especially because, for example, the profile, it's the first thing you see when you install Drupal. I mean, it's there. Unless it's hidden, it's there. So it's not like a module that you have to go to the modules page and look for something, and I don't know.
Yeah. If it's enabled, it's in the goddamn installer, and the goddamn the installer is a I think it's called the critical path, right? Everybody gets to see the installer who installs Drupal. So, and I think it's actually that installer bit is one of the pieces that is of more concern, right? Because the theme is a theme, and we're not even enabling experimental modules in the profile, etc. So the actual feature itself, the theme and the content, to my mind at least, are not the biggest risk. It's the part where we trick and do some tricks with the installer, etc., that need to be test driven a bit more.
Yeah, totally. There's a lot of people just wishing it comes right now, and it's coming. It's shown right now, but we have to be realistic. We have to know what it can happen, and
Yeah.
So like the intent behind this anyway is that we could in the 8.5 release notes, we could, and announcements and stuff, we could say, this great new feature is available in 8.6, go test it now. And then if it tests well and people aren't finding a bunch of horrible issues in 8.6, then the idea would be that we could enable it as a stable feature prior to 8.6. That's like the opening we're trying to leave open, because we understand that this is a really critical feature for Drupal's success. We know the team has worked really hard on it, but we're trying to balance the concerns, and I think justifiable concerns that, because this hasn't been, like, unlike Layout Builder, which was committed to 8.5 back in like October or something, so it's had a couple of months of burn-in period. This thing got committed even after the alpha deadline to 8.6, so it just hasn't had that window. So this is trying to safeguard it so that we don't have to say no to 8.5. We could say maybe to 8.5, but it all kind of depends on how things shake out with 8.6, which we definitely do know that that Umami will ship with 8.6, so that's not a question. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Right.
So yeah, it sucks to have the maybe as an answer, right? But it looks like it's also the best option we have to actually eventually expose it in 8.5.
Yeah, I think as a developer point of view, it's like but it's in the front page of Drupal. I mean, it's not the front page, the first page of Drupal, and it can have a lot of impact if people just start doing strange things, and we have to take that into account. So it makes sense.
You're taking it very well, Christine.
Yeah. I know you guys work so hard, to get this all done, and I just want you to know that effort is noticed and appreciated. But yeah, I think we also need to, it is the first, you guys are trailblazers, so we haven't done this before where we've shipped with a profile that we know isn't fully baked yet, and we do want to have the flexibility to make changes to it, and see how that's going to all go and shake out. So.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay. Great. That was my spiel, so I can hide behind the camera again.
Unless there's something JavaScript-y to discuss.
Yeah, do we want to discuss the JavaScript-y things?
What specifically JavaScript-y did we want to discuss there?
Nothing specifically. I was thinking that I think you've been following and helping the team a bit. If at all, there's already, if it is time, if 8.6 as a cycle is the time to start exploring, well, actual UX improvements we would like to see happen based on the new capabilities that a modernized JavaScript framework would bring us. Do we want to even? Yeah, do we want to start? I mean, it's we can always brainstorm, right? But is it are we at a place where it's productive to start brainstorming around this?
So I feel like it is always productive to start brainstorming about this, because we know from experience that anything touching the UI of Drupal needs a lot of ramp up time, because not only does it need our sign off, it needs product management sign off, it needs accessibility sign off, and then all of the other sign offs that you need for any other patch like framework and release manager and whatnots. So I do think it's very worth us talking about that and how we want to approach that. So I think, yeah, one idea I had on how to approach this is maybe doing, like back in DrupalCon Dublin, which I think was 2016, or it was a long time ago anyway. But back then I did a kind of a deep dive into various competitors of Drupal. So like WordPress is an obvious one, but these days there's many other ones. There's Adobe CQ5, there's Contentful, there's various things like that, and also kind of the lower end of the market, but very pretty ones like Squarespace, Wix, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It might be worth doing that again and kind of get an up-to-date view on what our competitors are doing in the space of, that overlap the feature set we offer, like media, layouts, internationalization, workflow, that kind of thing. And then look for places where the gap is quite significant. We could look at places there where, all right, let's reinvent this UI that needs reinventing anyway, and then throw some new JavaScript sexiness on top of it, is one approach. I think another approach is looking at something like Calypso, which is where WordPress did a kind of an all React-y, JavaScript-y front end for WordPress. So essentially replacing the entire admin experience with something that is, based on JavaScript and React, has like the no page refreshes, that kind of stuff. So that's like another approach we can take. Another approach still we could take is that we already know without doing any research at all that we have some features that are just clearly not up to snuff. Like our data modeling tools are obtuse and people do not understand how they work, even if they have a background in databases. That's a huge problem. Media, I think we can all agree that the thing we signed off on a couple of weeks back, which is essentially using a whole bunch of help text to explain how entity reference fields work, is not where we want to be. With
it
media.
felt a bit Drupal 4.75-ish to me.
Yeah. So like we could pick a couple of those and just be like, well, let's just go whole hog here. And in that respect, something like data modeling fits better, I think, because media, like say the media library, I think is something that would lend itself well to reactification, if you will, but also is tied to this larger initiative with this larger team versus like data modeling. No one is doing anything with that ever. So it's, well, that's not true, actually. We have had people like addicts doing stuff on it, but it's not an active initiative that throwing a side quest on would actively harm. So anyway, those are three different approaches I can think of. In terms of the JavaScript modernization issue or initiative itself, I think they're still in somewhat of the baby steps is not the right way to say it. It's more like building out foundation that they're doing. So for example, right now in head, you can't test JavaScript code with JavaScript. You have to write PHP code to test JavaScript. And that is batshit crazy, because if we want this initiative to succeed, we need some people who know JavaScript more than they know PHP, or possibly don't know PHP at all. And using testing methodologies that they're comfortable with would be, would way accelerate their effort. So that's something they're working on with the Drupal Association. The coding standards and coding design patterns, that kind of stuff that we employ with our JavaScript is also very like 2007, 2008, like that era. Trying to modernize all of that so that if a JavaScript developer who's a hotshot React developer does come across this code, they go, oh yeah, this looks good, in terms of like, instead of like, wow, way to be old and crusty, Drupal, that kind of thing. So they're working on various stuff like that, getting the tooling better filling in some missing gaps, particularly like the REST API, and does not work currently very well with JavaScript because like no, that's not true. Sorry. The REST API and JavaScript work fine. What doesn't work fine is the ability to create and submit forms, because we don't have a form API for JavaScript. And so there's been talk about what do we do about that? That doesn't require like writing the exact same code in 2 places, doesn't require huge waiting around for the server to render stuff and this kind of thing. So these are all sort of foundational challenges that the JavaScript team is currently working on, which I think leaves us an open runway to do whatever kind of pie in the sky spitballing we want to do, because they're not going to be in a position to implement anything at any rate anytime soon. However, I do have a concern that if we don't have some kind of pie in the sky, quote unquote, North Star vision for where we're going, that we could stay in that, foundation building for a long, long time. Versus like if we had that North Star vision, I could see us parceling out pieces of that and saying, well, we know we need a theme component library in order to do this JavaScript stuff. So how about we take this one interface and we rip it apart and we try and do that, as a starting point, So I do think we're in a place where we could brainstorm about it. I guess where I get stuck is I'm not sure what approach of the ones I mentioned or another approach entirely is the best way to do that. So I would welcome thoughts from the designers in the group on that.
I think there were a lot of things mixed here, both technical and from the UI, and as a designer point of view, is more my question would be, what is the goal? Is to make the UI nicer or up to date? Because if that's the goal, it can be done in a completely separate way, or completely separated from the technical approach that it's taken. We could start right now, but more or less, I mean, starting the first steps like the architecture, the information architecture that Clara was working, for example, on, or I don't know, of course the UI and other stuff, but I think there are several steps that doesn't need to go together with the other.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The JavaScript initiative, right, Roland, right? We spent a lot of time in Vienna thinking about the many ways we could improve the admin user experience. The JavaScript initiative is not, and we have Dries' word on that. The JavaScript initiative is not there to have better JavaScript. The goal is to leverage that better JavaScript for a 21st century user experience in the admin, so to make Drupal easier and better to use. So the JavaScript framework initiative is there to create better UX. Creating better UX is not only done through updating using JavaScript. And that's what Christina's saying, right? We can also visually update 7 theme. We can also rework the information architecture in the admin UI, etc., to create a better UX. So there's overlap, but they're not the same. So then still for the JavaScript framework, I guess it makes sense to look at interaction, right? Interaction patterns. I don't know, reinventing drag and drop data modeling UIs where that actually makes sense, etc. I'll stop there.
My main question will be probably, are we going to, so then these interactions are going to be defined by the framework at, I don't know, React or whatever, or because we are going to reuse something that is already there, or we are going to decide the interactions, for example, the kind of animations or this kind of thing.
I mean, the way they're currently going about it is they're going about it in a very granular fashion. So they're looking at what are all the user interface types we expose So things like form elements, search box, block element, blah, 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 and making little React components for those so that we could mix and match and reuse them in any capacity. What they don't have, and what I think they need us to provide, is the overarching vision on where is this thing going and how does it break down into implementation steps. Like first, we want to redesign this page. Then we want to redesign all pages like that. And third, we want, or whatever the sequence is. So in lieu of having a sort of an overarching artistic / product management vision, I think they're starting with the things they can tackle, which is some of this foundational work. And it's kind of piecemeal, and it's not, there's no spec sort of tying it all together. And I think that would be up to our team to develop.
Yeah, and I think from the different approaches you outlined, Webchick, is we can, I think both would work, right? Have a look again at what the competition is doing and identify some patterns that, and then focusing on the interaction patterns, I would probably suggest, and see what we're missing. And that would create a list of things we would like Drupal be able to do, but then we'd still have to do our own thing and think about where and how those new capabilities would be useful to implement or leverage. Anyway, this is an open-ended discussion at the end of our hour together here.
Yeah, but I guess, is anyone particularly passionate about one aspect of this or another? Like I know Jojo Toth, whose real name is escaping me at the moment, came up with a bunch of really great designs for redesigning 7 to look more modern. That's entirely a theming thing, I think, versus anything to do with JavaScript. But that's,
he had a really fancy toolbar thing though, with dynamic breadcrumbs and all the.
Oh, maybe I forget that stuff. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, we could dust that off again and look at it as a starting point. Or if anyone feels particularly passionate about exploring what our competitors are doing, I personally might be happy to take on that, or at least a couple of them, because that overlaps with my work pretty well. Mm-hmm. For work, I'm kind of being asked to develop a plan for like, what does it mean to make Drupal easier to use? And I'm like, I have no fucking idea, but let's look at, what people are used to, and then, as a starting point. So like, that's something I wouldn't say passionate about doing, but I'm forced to do anyway. So if others are interested in that and want to collaborate, I'd be happy to. I think another angle to approach this from is just like, what is the cool shit React can even do, and where do we see where that could really help make UIs we know aren't easy to use right now at all easier to use, be that data modeling, workflow, anything like that. So.
Yep. I'm happy to continue the discussion on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
The best issue is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I know, was just going to say that I would love to participate on that, but also Jojo.
Yeah.
He will be interested for sure.
Yeah. Well, why don't we pick up the discussion at 2902399, like the issue Roland or Roland?
Roland.
Roland. Okay, great. The issue that Roland linked there, because that was last touched in mid-October. So I think it would be good for us to revisit that. And that will also notify Jojo Toth that we're looking at his issue again and stuff like that. So that's probably a good place to start. Kind of look at what we've got there and just kind of brainstorm back and forth. Because this is just in the ideas queue right now. And so it's still very much in brainstorming mode. So that might be a place to talk for the next week. Yeah. And then maybe we could pick this up again next week with, or in a future week. It doesn't have to be next week, with what we've learned.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Perfect.
Right.
And with that,
everybody.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Sounds
Thanks
good.
all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Cheers all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.